Welcome to the Life You Crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Lia Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started. Hello and welcome, friends, to the Life You Crave podcast. Most of you already know me, but I am Lia Pinelli, and 7 years ago, I learned how to finally, after decades and decades and decades, I learned how to finally stop overeating and live at my natural weight with minimal effort. I shed 30 pounds way back then, and that was a byproduct of changing my habits with food. And now I teach women how to do the same in my program called The Fempire, which you can learn more about at liapinelli.com. Today, I am super excited to talk with you all today about how I became somebody who exercises every day and loves it. And I'm not just going to tell my story. I'm going to explain how it worked for me and now how it can work for you and how it actually does work for people who exercise regularly. So yeah, let's just do it. Let's just get right into it. So as I mentioned at the beginning, for decades I struggled with food and weight, and I definitely used exercise as a tool for weight loss, or at least I tried, right? I tried, and I really tried to be someone who, I had this idea in my mind that if I were to run, right? If I were to become a runner, I mean, look at marathon runners, right? They're like lean and strong, most of them, right? So if I were just to be able to run on a regular basis, if I could run every day, that would solve all of my problems. And I have this beautiful cousin who is a runner, and she's always really fit and petite and strong, I'm like, I could just be like Gina, I could do it like Gina. And I would try, I'd get my Couch to 5K program, I'd get a new pair of sneakers, I would, run, walk, and I am freaking telling you guys, my body hates running. I'm not making this up. This is not like psychosomatic. My body hates to run. Hates it. It hurts. First of all, I feel like I'm always running through sand. Like I'm like light on my feet. I see those runners who are like light and like bounding down the street now. I am dragging my ass. And it hurts. It hurts every part of my body. Particularly my shoulders, which is so funny, but I guess that's because, sometimes runners will hold tension there. Anyway, hate running, but I tell you guys, I'm persistent, and I would keep on, trying and try. Now, when I say keep on, I mean, I would run for like 3 times in a week, and then I would not run again for at least 8 or 9 months, right? And then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be able to do it. I'd look up running clubs and all the things that I thought that I should do and needed to do, because running seemed like such a good option, I mean, it's like you could do it anywhere mostly, and it's free and all the things, right? No, hated running. You name it, I tried it, right? Like I was doing HIIT classes, and again, it was literally the same pattern every single time. Join a gym, go a few times a week for a few weeks, and then boom, like it starts to taper off, and then you just feel like, can you relate to this? I know a lot of you can. Then you just start to feel like it requires so much energy just to get yourself to go for the run, to go to the gym, that the amount of energy it takes just to get you there is more energy than it takes to actually do the workout, right? It wasn't just with things that were painful, like running and going to the gym. It was also things like yoga. I am somebody who has had chronic back issues my whole life. I have scoliosis, runs in my family, and I had whiplash twice as a teenager. And, and so I have all kinds of back issues that when I do yoga, it really helps to alleviate a lot of the tension and pain that I have in my back. And yet lo and behold, even though I have been a regular yoga practitioner actually since 1994, but I could never get my yoga practice to a place that I was really doing it consistently enough, right? So I would usually do yoga at home on my own about once a week, or I'd go to a class about once a week. But, and sometimes it might be a little more than that, but that really wasn't like yoga. And I like to go to like the gentle yoga classes. I would push myself sometimes to maybe go to a power yoga class, but honestly, I hated those too. I hated those classes. I hated them while I was there. I hated them. It took a lot of mental energy to get me to go to those classes. So this was my pattern. Start and stop, start and stop. Like the same way that I would start and stop a different diet. And always the thinking in my head was like, I just need to find the right workout, I need to find the right diet. And once I find the right one, I will be able to do it consistently. And that's not really how it worked out. I mean, it is how it worked out, but it's not how it worked out. And I'm going to explain why. The problem that I was experiencing, and if you are somebody who wishes you exercise consistently and you've tried just like me a bunch and you just don't do it, like it's one of those things that you should do, you just don't do it kind of thing. If you're like me in that way, I am going to bet that my problem is your problem. So here's what it is. The problem is that I really wanted the result of the exercise. I wanted to be fit. I wanted to be fit. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to feel sexy and confident in my body, right? And to me, that was like having a really fit, strong, and lean body. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's not a fallacy, right? Like you see people who work out all the time and they look like that, right? So you're like, I want to look like that too. So I need to go work out all the time. That makes logical sense. But the problem, and I've talked about this a little bit already on the podcast this month, because this month in the Fempire, we dive deep on habit building. But we do it very, very differently than your traditional, atomic habits or tiny habits. We implement some of those strategies because those strategies are legit, but we do it from a totally different place. And this is what you've heard me talk about on the podcast this month. And I'm going to revisit that. We're looping back to that right now in the same theme of habits, building an exercise habit. The mistake that so many of us make, that I was making, is I was focused on the actions. I was focused on the behaviors of exercise. Okay, I want to be fit. I want this result. So I would tie it to the action of exercising really regularly and really hard, right? And that makes logical sense. The mistake is I thought, and it seems totally logical, so why wouldn't we think this? But the mistake that I was making was I thought I had to do something different so that I could, make sure I say this right, have something different, right? I thought if I did something different, like if I became a gym rat, then I would have a really fit, lean, and sexy body. And I would then be someone. So this is the cycle of do, have, be. Do the exercises, have the body, and then I would be someone who feels confident and strong and sexy in her skin. And is somebody who works out regularly, right? That is what I thought. That's how I thought it worked. That's how you probably think it works. That's how most people think it works. What turns out, it's a paradox in a lot of ways, but as it turns out, the opposite is true. We actually have to flip that. Instead of do, have, be, we have to actually be, do, have. So let me explain. What I mean by that is you have to actually become someone who exercises consistently and regularly in order to be someone who actually goes and takes those actions. You have to be the person who takes the actions first. You have to think like her. You have to feel like her. What I mean by be, when I say you have to be someone, our being is really, it's our energy, it's our essence, it's our thoughts and our feelings combined. Your thinking and your feelings are what create your beingness. right? And so because your thinking and feelings create your beingness, you have to think and feel differently than you currently do right now or than you have in the past. You have to think and feel differently in order to take different actions consistently, i.e., work out, in order to then have what it is that you want to have, which would be a fit, strong body that you feel confident and good in. Do you see what I'm saying? So instead of do, have, be, it's actually be, do, have. So this begs the question, which is, by the way, I forgot to say this at the top of the podcast, but I record this podcast live in the Life You Crave Facebook group, and you can come and join and ask questions and all the things anytime. I record these live at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So we know how to do exercise, right? So when I'm like, okay, the mistake is that you do the exercises to have what you want, to be who you want. That's easier, right? Because it's like, well, okay, I'm going to go do some exercise. We know how to do exercise, but I'm telling you that that's the problem, and that the solution is you have to actually be different to do different to have different. And so you're probably wondering, okay, how do I be different? How do I actually be someone who is different, who exercises regularly? Well, as I mentioned, your beingness is the thoughts you think and the feelings you feel. So you want to start there. You actually want to not start with a gym membership, not start with a yoga studio, super expensive yoga studio membership. You want to start with your thoughts and feelings. And we're going to focus first and foremost on those feelings, right? And here's the question I like to ask. Someone who works out regularly, somebody who exercises regularly, and not just anyone, but I like to picture my future self, right? My future self, I've decided, because I'm in control and I get to decide, my future self, she exercises regularly. So if she exercises regularly, how does she feel? Now, you can do this with someone else. How does somebody who exercises regularly feel when she is making the decision to go and exercise? And the answer to that, I'm actually going to tell you the truth. As hard to believe as it might be, a woman who exercises regularly, she loves it. She feels love. She feels desire to exercise. And I am slowing down my cadence of my voice very intentionally right now, because I really want you to hear those words. She desires the act of moving her body. She loves to move her body. It feels good. These are all keys, you guys. So just keep listening with me, okay? She feels good when she exercises. And a lot of you are like, that's not possible. I hate exercise, right? Just stick with me to the end of this episode, because I'm going to give you some ways that you actually might explore that maybe you don't hate all exercise. And we'll come to that in a minute. There's a few things that she doesn't feel, by the way. She does not exercise because she feels obligated. So many of us feel obligated to exercise. We know we should, quote unquote, exercise, right? Like, everybody knows exercise is good for you. Every doctor on the planet is going to tell you need to exercise. Exercise is the fountain of youth. Exercise is, the magical balms, the magical salve that's going to save everything about your life. And the truth is there's a lot of truth in that. Like, exercise really is really freaking good for you for so many reasons. But for a lot of us, we are so busy, especially as women. We have careers, we have businesses, we are running households, we are running teams. We have so much to do in our lives that having one more should, especially a should that's painful and awful, like running. No offense to my runners, by the way. If you like running, you do you, girl. But I'm just saying, for me, running is not a match. but it's like another should. And when we throw it in that bucket of obligation and I should do this or I have to do this, there's no love and desire there. There's no, right? Like the last thing we want as women is another freaking thing that we have to go do, right? No, like we have enough of that. So we can't throw exercise in that bucket. And my future self does not feel a sense of obligation to exercise. She hears the same messages that we all hear, right? That we should exercise, but that's not what drives her. The feeling that drives her is desire and love. Now, when I'm talking about your feelings driving your behaviors, this is just a fact. I mean, this, you can learn, just Google cognitive behavioral therapy, right? And you will see that our thoughts are what create our feelings, and our feelings are actually the driver of our actions. So that's why it's so important that you start with the feeling state. What is the feeling state of a woman who exercises regularly? Right? And what is it not? So that's the first thing. So to go back to these examples, when I was talking about running, I hate running. So therefore, that's clearly never going to motivate me to get out there and do it on a regular basis. Here's why. A lot of you think, oh, no, but if I force myself, if I kind of get self-punishing, if I have enough discipline, I really will do it. If I beat myself up a little bit, I really will do it. You will, but not for very long, right? We usually are going to peter out with that one. And if we don't peter out with it, which is very rare, we're usually miserable. Like, why would we want that, right? No. In my world, in the Fempire, pleasure is a non-negotiable. It is a priority. We don't force ourselves to do crap on a regular basis that we don't love. And the reason for that is there's a concept in psychology called the motivational triad that says that as humans, we are hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain and do it with the least amount of effort possible. So if that's the case, if you're trying to work out in a way that you don't love, that feels like pain and suffering, I promise you're not going to stick with it forever. Okay? So let's just X out the running for me, and whatever that might be for you, put it on your list. And that list might be long. There's a lot of exercise I never want to do, right? I don't want to scale mountains. I have a fear of heights, right? I don't want to play football. Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't want to do. My list of exercise that I don't want to do is way freaking longer than the list of stuff I do want to do. But that's okay, because I don't need a long list of exercise I want to do. I just need one thing. Luckily, I have more than one, but I only need one, and so do you. The second example that I gave you earlier was about the gym, right? This idea of going to the gym. And I would sign up for gyms because I wanted the result. I was tying my actions to the result of being strong. Instead, I need to tie my actions to who I'm being. And the gym, for me, I don't love going to the gym. I don't love the environment, the sterile environment. I don't love working out with a bunch of, dudes pumping iron. I don't know. I don't love the whole thing. I don't love it. So that's out, right? Yoga. Now, I did mention that yoga is something that I am a longtime practitioner of, but not with enough consistency to really give me the movement that I desire and the strength that I desire. And the truth is I do love to do yoga, but there are some catches that I learned. And here's what I want to share. I discovered 3 things about myself. When I became somebody who exercised regularly, what I learned about myself was I didn't become somebody who exercised like regularly the same routines long enough to actually get results until I discovered Pilates. Now, this is not an advertisement for Pilates. You do not have, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you to go to Pilates. What I want for every listener is that you find what works for you. Pilates just so happened to be the first thing that really worked for me. I discovered 4 years ago, reformer Pilates, and I loved, that's not true. Pilates was not the first thing. Dang it. Okay, hold on. That is not true. Back in 2012, is that right? 2012, I discovered Bikram yoga. And Bikram yoga was actually the first exercise routine, which by the way, for me, Bikram yoga is so much more than exercise, but we don't need to get into that right now. It's a very spiritual experience for me. I have like these, I call them spiritual orgasms all the time while I'm there. I'm not literally having orgasms in the yoga studio, just so you know. I'm using that as a phrase. But the Bikram was the first thing that I found where I found myself leaving the studio and then really looking forward to coming back, craving it, missing it, desiring to go back to the studio. What was happening here? What happened was I found a routine of movement and strength building that fit me like a glove. It checked so many boxes. And here, when I think about this idea of having boxes, and I'll share with you kind of what my boxes turned out to be, but the gym doesn't hit any of my boxes. I mean, maybe one, like, but something like Bikram, it was like hand in glove, perfect fit for me. Now, there's a few reasons why. If you don't know what Bikram yoga is, by the way, it is, it's a very specific, it is the exact same 26 postures and 2 breathing exercises done over the course of 90 minutes in a room that is 105 degrees. So you sweat your butt off. And it was designed by a totally not so great human being named Bikram. Anyway, that's what Bikram is, and that's what I love. So what I found was there were certain things about Bikram that made me crave it. And this is, again, just me. I don't sweat very easily, and your body is going to sweat like crazy in a 105 degree room for 90 minutes. And I think that there's something about that forced sweating for me that is incredibly therapeutic, and my body craves it, right? There are so many pieces I'm not going to get into, but there are so many pieces to that particular yoga tradition that I crave and love and desire. It takes no willpower. It takes no strong arming me to go to class. I look forward to it and I want to be there. Now, this might not be a surprise to you. I'm going to tell you right now that the key to exercising regularly is that you find something that you love to do. And I know that there are a lot of you out there listening right now that might be like, I don't love to do any form of, exercise. And again, just hang with me. I'm going to get back to that objection. But first I want to say that the reason that is so important that you find a form of movement that you love, because of that motivational triad that I talked about just a few minutes ago. Your biology is designed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So running is pain. The gym is pain for me. Bikram is heaven, right? Compared to that. Like, I love it. It feels like pleasure to me. Now, here comes the caveat. Bikram is really hard. It's not easy. And I promise you that probably, I don't know, let's say 8 out of 10 classes, I have a moment in class where I'm like, what the F am I doing here? Why? This is painful. Is class almost over yet? Why? This is awful. Why did I agree to come here? Am I going to pass out? I think I might throw up, right? Like, I mean, maybe not that extreme, but most classes, I have a few moments where it's really hard and my brain is protesting like crazy. It's like, get me out of here. But here's the thing. 90% of the time, I am loving it. 10% of the time, I am protesting it. And that 10% is when it's really hard. And that's the thing, is exercise should be hard, right? It should stretch us. And that's how we grow. That's how we grow muscle. That's how we grow strength. That's how we grow flexibility and cardiovascular health. It should be hard, right? So here's the mistake that a lot of us make, is we think that when it gets hard, we should then change course. And the opposite is true. When it gets hard, you should double down, because that actually means that you're growing. Now, if you, though, are in a different camp where it's like 50% of the time you hate it and 50% of the time you love it, that might not be enough for your motivational triad, for the pleasure factor, right? You might need to up that pleasure factor. Now, one example that I'll give you is a form of exercise that I also really love is I love to walk. I love to walk and to hike. And sometimes walking is not quite hard enough. Now, I used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area where we have tons of hills. So walking was always hard, right? Because I was going huffing it up these huge hills. And I loved that actually. It was hard. I hated it. I couldn't wait to get to the top of the hill. But when I got to the top of the hill, those endorphins were flying and I was feeling great, right? So it made that 10% of the walk that was really hard, or maybe even 15% of the walk really hard. But the 85, 90% made it all worth it, right? That was the driver for the walk. So where I live now, very flat. I don't have these big hills. So sometimes walking isn't quite hard enough. It doesn't really feel like a challenge. So it doesn't really necessarily feel super motivating, especially if it's gray outside, right? Or really cold. So I have learned to couple movement like that with other rewards. Like I'm a huge audiobook listener and a huge podcast listener. So I will get hooked on a new book or a new podcast, and that will motivate me to get out and do my walk. And I only listen to it when I'm out doing my walk, or I'll catch up with friends on my walk, usually by phone. But it's a great time for me to catch up with people on those walks. So it's doing double duty and it's giving me the feeling that we are after here. So if I'm feeling good because I'm connecting with friends, or I'm feeling good because I'm learning from a podcast, or I'm being entertained by an audiobook, I am far more likely to want to repeat the habit, to repeat the action. Now, that doesn't mean that, for me, Bikram takes no motivation. I don't need to muster any energy to go. I look forward to going. I can't wait to go. I love going. Sometimes things like walks or weightlifting, they actually do require me to kind of give myself like a kick in the pants to get going. But the point is, what I want you to notice is you need to notice how much of a kick in the pants is required, because that matters. I have to give myself a way bigger kick in the pants to go to a gym than I do just to put on my shoes and grab my dog leash and go for a walk, right? You just notice it's a little nudge versus like a real heavy lift. If it's a real heavy lift, it's the wrong movement routine for you. So paying attention to that, and then also pay attention to how you feel when you're doing it. And just know, if you feel good 85%, 90% of the time, if you feel like endorphins are being released and you're feeling good, then you're on the right track. You will crave that. You will want that. You will desire that. And here's the thing. That is how you become, because now you're feeling good about exercise. You genuinely want to exercise. So now you have become a woman who exercises, because we do what we want to do. Right? We do have our feelings drive our actions. So it's no longer the result of having some chiseled body, which, by the way, will never be my body, right? Like, I don't have a body that will ever be chiseled. I don't know what I would have to do, but it would be extreme, and I'm not interested in that, right? But in my mind, back in the day when I would imagine myself going to the gym, I was imagining some chiseled body. I cannot attach my actions now to go to a Bikram class with regularity, and to walk my dog with regularity, and to lift weights with regularity. I cannot attach those to that result, because then because that is such a demotivator. And you do that for a month, you look in the mirror and you can't even see you can't even see any sign of that happening in your body. And your body's like, well, that is way too much effort for way too little reward. F that, we're not doing it. That's what happens. Right? So don't even bother with that. Don't attach those actions to the result. Attach the actions to the feeling, and then you will do it. And will do it regularly, and will do it consistently. I mentioned a few minutes ago, Pilates. I have had the same experience, not spiritual orgasms with Pilates, but I've had the same experience with really loving Pilates reformers specifically, and going very regularly for 3 years. There's another fact here too. Let me take a quick sip of water. There is another factor here too, which is the convenience, the proximity to your home, and how convenient it is for you to do. So, when I lived in Southern California, I was doing Pilates very, 3 or 4 times a week, maybe 4 or 5 times a week actually, because I had a studio very close to my house, and I did not have a Bikram studio anywhere near me. When I moved to Western New York, where I live now, I couldn't find a Pilates studio that I loved, but there is an amazing Bikram studio that I love, and so now that's where I go. I had mentioned to you that you really only need one thing, but it is very convenient to have more than one thing, because then kind of no matter where you go, you can find something that is your jam. So look around and see what's in your area. The other thing that I'll say is that classes for me make a huge difference. If it's just me on my own, and this is super common, not everybody, but this is very common. If it's just me on my own and it's challenging, I am likely not going to do it for very long. And that's because we are motivated by community. When we sign up for something and there's going to be a fee if you cancel, even if you're not motivated by the fee, often we start to build relationships with people that we're seeing there, whether it's a gym membership, if you are a gym person, or whether it's a class. You start to build relationships, and that community is becomes subconsciously even very encouraging to continue going. So you may want to consider the community, you want to consider the classes if that's something that motivates you. And another thing that I've noticed in the past, we don't listen to music at the type of yoga that I do, but at Pilates, the playlist made a difference, right? Having good music really made a difference. I've noticed that as well at my CrossFit gym. The music can really make a difference. So thinking about those things, and you can add those things in, just noticing if you're not feeling it in one place, try another place, right? See what's working for you. Experiment, to be open. In the month of February, we talked about curiosity and how important it is to have curiosity and compassion to find the right thing. Ooh, the other thing I wanted to mention is that you should also feel free to commit to one form of exercise that you love for a period of time and then plan to switch it up. Right? So you might be I'm somebody who I can do Bikram, every day for the rest of my life and really not get tired of it. But you might be somebody who's like, I like to do, hot yoga in the winter when it's cold. And then come spring, I like to switch to Pilates. And then come summer, I like to do outdoor sports like hiking or, whatever it is. Like, you should feel this, you get to decide, right? You have agency to decide what this looks like for you. All that matters is that you feel a desire to do it. Whether you need a little nudge or not, you feel a desire to do it enough that you do it consistently. So, after I've said all of that, I want to emphasize for my clients will recognize that we have the same rule around food. We have no food rules in the Fempire, but there is one non-negotiable, which is you have to enjoy it. You have to get pleasure from it, whether it's food or exercise, or else you just won't sustain it. And I know that's true from my own experience in my own life and from having seen so many people go down the same path as me. So to sum this up, I want you to tie the action to your feelings and who you're being, and don't tie the action to the results any longer. The last piece here. Oh, I'm going a little bit over time, but that's okay. The last piece, though, is really important. So you might find an exercise that you really do like, but you have competing values, right? There are other things in your life that you also really like and want to do, like spend time with your family in the evenings. And maybe you have a career like I used to have, where I would leave for work at 6:30 in the morning and not get home until 6:30 at night. And I had a family and I really wanted to be with them. And there was no space for exercising at that point in my life, because I wanted to be with my family or what have you. I can't solve that for you on this podcast, but it is something we work through and we work on in the Fempire on. But here's what I can tell you. Most of us don't have jobs where we are working like that. And if we do, it might be important that you find, finding some consistency in other ways, weekends, maybe 1 or 2 afternoons a week or in the morning, whatever it is. But the most important question that you want to ask yourself is, why do I want to do this? Why is this important to me? Why is it important to exercise? And for most of us, when we say, well, why do I want to exercise? Like, the first answer is something like, oh, I want a banging body, like I want to look good. I want to blah, 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 blah. But the truth is that banging body idea maybe can work when we're 22. But a lot of times we have this idea of what we would like to look like. And then there's the reality of what the exercise actually does for our bodies. And that can be a demotivator. Again, we're attaching actions to results, and we want to avoid that. So I'm not saying not to exercise because you want to feel good in your skin and you want to be strong and fit and feel sexy and beautiful. What's even more important is that you really think about your reasons why this is important to you. And I want you to write them down. And you can include that, but I want you to go even deeper. So a lot of times what comes up when people talk about wanting to exercise regularly, yeah, they talk about the banging body, but a lot of times it's like, well, why do you want that, right? So keep going a little deeper. Why do you want the banging body? Well, I want to feel attractive to other people. That's a big reason. But the truth is that you already are attractive to other people. And I know some of you right now are like, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You might not feel attractive to you, but if your reasons for exercising is because of your perception of what other people think of you, I guarantee you right now there are other people in this world who find you attractive right now. So you can just go ahead and check that box. You don't need to exercise in order to be attractive to other people. Another reason that I often hear people say they want to work out and have a banging body is because they want to feel good and confident in their skin. Now that's a different story, because that's very, well, they're both subjective, but that one is, I encourage you to define that for yourself. What does feeling good in your skin really feel like? Because check it out, it's a feeling, right? But a lot of times it can be, I want to feel strong, I want to feel competent, I want to feel secure when I'm getting up off the floor, whatever it is. But get really clear on what exactly is that to feel confident. How will I know when I've gotten there? Really define that for yourself. Another big one is, I want my self-image to match my body, meaning we see ourselves one way and we feel almost alien in our bodies, right? I know that was the case for me when I was 30 pounds heavier. I didn't hate my body then, but it just didn't feel like home to me. And now I know, from being somebody who exercises regularly and no longer overeats, this feels like home. This feels like alignment. And that is really important to me. That feeling of alignment is so, so good and powerful and empowering. And I want more of that. And then the last one is, a lot of people talk about, oh, I want to exercise regularly because I just know that it's really good for me, and I want to take really good care of myself. I want, to live a long time, and I want to be healthy, and I want to have good mental health, which exercise impacts, and I want to have muscles, and I want this health for myself. And again, I encourage you to really define for yourself, okay, these are great reasons, but really get clear on those reasons and why that's so important to you. Maybe you want to lower your blood sugar levels. Maybe you want to lower your A1C, your cholesterol, and exercise is going to help with all of that, right? These are great reasons to want to exercise, but you have to couple your why not with the result or the action. You're coupling your why with who you're being. If this is so important to me, then I need to be someone who then prioritizes it. I need to be someone who takes the time and invests maybe some money to find an exercise routine that I will do regularly. Experts say this all the time. They say the best exercise routine is the one that you do regularly, right? That's it. So even if it's just a walk that has no hills and it's 5 minutes, that is better than no walk at all. I recently got Christmas, I got a walking pad for under my desk in my office. And in the beginning, I was using it. It was great. And then, did that thing where I pushed it aside and I stopped using it. And recently, I heard someone else saying that she has a goal of just walking for 15 minutes a day. And I was like, ooh, that I can do. Because in my mind, I had bought this walking pad, so I should be walking like all day long on it, right? Because it's right here in my office. And so I should be walking for hours a day and miles a day. And then when I wasn't doing that, we tend to have all or nothing thinking with this. It's black and white thinking. Either I'm like walking, 20,000 steps a day, or I'm not walking at all. And instead it's like, no, girl, just make it something that you can do regularly, like even just 15 minutes. And you know what happens? I pull it out and tell myself I'm going to do 15 minutes, and I totally do an hour, right? Like that's how it works. But the point is that you sometimes have to scale it back just to get your brain on board. And we talked about that a little bit last week on the podcast about habits as well. So you can check that one out. The last piece that I want to leave you with is my why. I want to share with you why I exercise regularly. And the first reason is because I love myself, truly. It's because I love myself. And this is a concept that I teach within the Fempire. It's called BILM, stands for because I love myself. And I got this term, I made it up, but I got this kind of phrase because I love myself from, it's a term that parents use all the time, right? We say this to kids all the time. Kids will feel like you're punishing them by going to bed or by making them go to bed on time because they have school the next day, or by not letting them eat ice cream for dinner or whatever it is. And my kid hasn't said this yet, but sometimes kids will say, you don't love me, right? And our response is like, no, it's because I love you that I'm not going to let you run into the middle of the street. It's because I love you that I'm going to create these boundaries for you. It's because I love you that I want you to get a full night of sleep and not be tired at school tomorrow and have behavioral issues, right? It's because I love you that I am providing this structure for you. And for me, I took that term and I said, you know what? It's because I love myself that I eat the way I eat. It's because I love myself that I exercise regularly. It's when I don't really love myself that I don't treat myself well, right? Because people that we love, we tend to treat really well, hopefully, ideally. Maybe husbands excluded. Haha, just kidding. So because I love myself is the reason that I exercise regularly. And the second reason that I exercise regularly is because I really do have a vision of myself at 90 years old. I really do have a vision of myself at 90 years old, and I am strong and I am fit and I can get down on the floor and get up again. And I know some of you who are older are rolling your eyes and thinking like, okay, yeah, we'll see you at 90, Lia. But there are 90-year-olds out there who can and do. For those of you who have watched or know about the Blue Zones, and there's a documentary on Netflix about that, like you'll see some old people who are like active, and that's who I want to be, and that's who I plan to be. So every time that I go to my Bikram practice, or I take a walk in the woods, or whatever it is that I'm doing that is moving my body, even if it's getting on my walking pad for 15 minutes, I am literally investing in the health of my future self. I'm investing in my future self. And that version of me, that Lia, my future self, she's thanking me. And I know this sounds silly, but like she's straight up like hugging me, high-fiving me. Because when I get to be 90, the last thing I want is to look back and think, damn, I wish I had just spent a little more time moving my body so that I don't feel this way, or I'm not in this condition at 90. And I know a lot of you have parents, that maybe you've watched as they age, and clients have said this to me, that they wish their parents had prioritized their health more, because it's so hard to watch our parents struggle with our bodies as we age. And it's a gift to my son, right? It's a gift to me, it's a gift to my son, it's a gift to my family to take really exquisite care of myself on a physical level. So you can steal all of those ideas. You're not stealing them. You can have them. If they serve you, take them with you. Please tell me in the comments, why do you want to exercise? And if you're listening to this on the Life You Crave podcast, you can head over to the Life You Crave Facebook group, and you can drop in the comments questions, comments, ideas. I will be right there to help you, to answer you, to coach you through the whole thing. But make sure you drop your questions below, and also tell me why it is that you want to exercise, or why it is that you do exercise. Thank you all for joining me today. I'll see you next week, same time, same place, 3 p.m. Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, here in the Life You Crave Facebook group. Ciao.
You've been listening to the Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at liapinelli.com. That's liapinelli.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.